We're going to talk a little bit about interaction and some of the things that the web browser is capable of. So this is the starter code. You can see I have the beginnings of a header and also a nav bar in here. And then I have this trio of images that are kind of spaced out. So you can see when I hover over these images, whatever one I'm hovered on becomes the top image, and then also it slowly fades from black and white to full color. So this is utilizing something that's called z-index. So you can think of z-index as kind of like layer order in Illustrator or Photoshop. It's kind of like what is the thing that is closest to you. So let's head over to this code and see what's making it work. Okay, so you can see here that I start off the document with opening up my body tag, and then I have a navigation section, and then this trio of images, and then I have a footer with some more information about myself at the bottom. So this could be the start of maybe an about page with a navigation bar also worked into it. So let's head over to the CSS and see what's powering some of this stuff. It must be in this. Okay, so this is an example of two CSSs. So in my main.css, I'm just putting all of my typographic styling, kind of the main parts of the document. But then I have this other one called image container that's just this one area here. So let me see in my index.html. I call this image container. So this is a way of working with code where it is considered modular, meaning that if someone wanted just to use this image container code and have just these hover effects and z-index and all that stuff, they wouldn't have to go through my main.css and extract all the things they needed. It's already kind of all packaged for them here. Okay, so some things that we're seeing in this that are new. We're talking about CSS grid and how we turn it on. So we can see that on line 2, we are turning on the capabilities of CSS grid. Similar to the resume code, we're starting off by building columns and rows. So we're building 5 columns, 7 rows for this image to fall into. And then down here, we're giving some image styling. So we're saying when the page loads, have it put a filter on the images that make it grayscale, 100% grayscale. So this is a cool command to work with like hover effects or putting image effects on things, this filter grayscale. If I came down here and I dropped this to maybe 80, what you would see is some of the color coming through. Let's try dropping it down to 50 and seeing what we get. Huh. Doesn't really look like it's having much of an effect. I gotta look into that exactly why that 150 for that value seemed to be very similar. Okay, and then we can also control how fast that transition happens. So right now that transition from grayscale to full color is happening at half a second. Let's see if I make this a 3-second transition instead. You can see it's much slower, right? The user would probably be confused by that. I think that faster snap of the filter makes a lot more sense. So I'm going to change that back to 0.5 seconds. Also, what this is doing is a pseudo class, right? We did pseudo classes with the SVG. So we set hover states for the SVG. Now we're setting a hover state for images. So we're saying when we hover over an image, take whatever the filter is and change it to none. So it's basically saying lift off this grayscale filter and allow it to just be what it naturally was. And then we're saying take whatever image that you're hovering over and make the z-index be 3. So basically that means like make it be the thing that's closest to me. So higher numbers here mean layer order, it's closer to you, it's up at the top. So that's why when we're hovering over each of these, they're coming up very close to us. They're the top item. And then these things down here, the image, this nth child basically means like the first thing nested inside, the second thing, the third thing. So this is a way you can refer to images. So if I head over here to my index.html, you can see this is the first image, second image, third image, right? So that corresponds to this, first, second, third. So I'm calling out first how I want them to span. So again, this is kind of like, if you can think of coordinates, I'm saying start at 1, 1, which is like this top corner over here, and span all the way down to 4, 3, which is this edge here. This one I'm saying start at 2, 2, span to 4, 5. So this, we don't need to get into the intricacies of this grid, but know that this is one way to lay out a grid with CSS Grid, calling out the grid area of where you want images to lie. And then the reason I have this grid, the second child, the second image with a z-index of 2 is because when the page loads, I want this one to always be up top. So let's see if I changed this to 0. Now that is not the top image when the document loads. But I do like it better when that kind of center one is on top. And then again, I had to do the z-index of 3 for when we hovered because it needs to go in front of this one, right? So again, think of the z-index as almost like shuffling like a deck of cards. So whatever is 2, whatever is 1, like I could make this 1, 0, and now it's moving back in layer order versus 2 will make it come to the front. So this might be something that you want to play around with a little bit in your own portfolio, kind of having maybe a section where images are interactive like this. The one thing to keep in mind though is that most people will be seeing your document on a mobile phone and this kind of hover functionality won't be present. So I wouldn't say build your whole portfolio site around this concept because again, probably only like 1 in 4 people will ever even see it on a desktop device. So yeah, that's a little bit about z-index and hover effects.